Some months back, British Nigerian and leader of the UK Conservative Party, Kemi Badenoch, in response to remarks by the Vice President of Nigeria, Kashim Shettima, boldly stated that she identified more as Yoruba and less as a Nigerian. These statements sparked significant outcry from Nigerians at home and in the diaspora. Kemi's statement set the tone for the question at hand. And what's the question? Are we really one people? Or is our unity as a people real or imagined? Who can blame Kemi if she wants to identify with the group that is real to her? And who can blame her if she doesn't believe in the Nigerian experiment? There are many leaders of the nation that also don't believe in the Nigerian experiment. So, we need to give Kemi a break. If you're a Nigerian and you want to be bluntly honest, you know she's not alone. Many Nigerians don't believe in the Nigerian idea. Now, this problem echoes from national dimension all the way to the continental dimension. The revered Kwame Nkrumah professed the tenet of Pan-Africanism, a belief that Africa could become one continental federation of autonomous states, and he ran towards the goal. Many people would say Nkrumah could not achieve this goal because of the CIA, but that's not entirely accurate. It was mostly because it just never factored in or cared for the critical and cruel element of Africa's history, politics, belief, and identity. For 10,000 years, no African civilization has ever thought to unite Africa under one banner or under one belief. Not even the Egyptian civilization, which is arguably the most intelligent civilization of all time. Instead, the Egyptians conquered and enslaved neighboring African tribes in the Nubian region. When Ghana ruled, they never unified black people. They conquered instead. When Mali ruled, they never unified us. They conquered. When Songhai ruled, they never unified us. They conquered. When Aksum ruled, they never unified us. They conquered. When Ife ruled, they never unified. They conquered. When Oyo ruled, they never unified. They conquered. When you have a history without any trace of unification, that should not be taken lightly. Perhaps this great civilization never attempted disunification because they realized that Africans are fundamentally different and distinctively diverse people, and it might be better for it to remain that way. That said, this doesn't mean that the people of these continents cannot be unified. But under the existing narrative of Pan-Africanism as we know it, failure is inevitable. Those narratives need to be reconstructed. Pan-Africanists today desire a goal, which is unification, but fail to acknowledge that the Europeans began the amalgamation exercise, albeit forcefully. But more on that later. Africans have always fragmented along the lines of their cultural and religious idiosyncrasies, rather than unifying in the direction of their shared ideals. Anyone talking about Pan-Africanism, I won't take time to deeply understand where Africans are coming from, is simply paying lip service to a flimsy cause that will never see the light of day. Africa has over 800 recognizable cultures with varying values, different dialects, and unique worldviews. This makes a homogeneous African identity difficult to define. The continent's geographical diversity also contributes to cultural variations, particularly the divide between the Maghreb states with their Arab and Islamic cultures and the rest of sub-Saharan Africa. The Maghreb is another kettle of fish as they prioritize their affiliations with the Middle East over their association with Africa. Ethnic groups are deeply rooted in history, using origin stories, myths, and religion to create powerful identities that unite them and insulate them from surrounding ethnicities. We see today that loyalty to an ethnic group is often stronger than loyalty to a country, as in the case of Kemi Badenoch. As most Africans who live in Africa know, ethnic or clan leaders often hold more influence than national leaders. An example is a man called Nnamdi Kanu. In southwestern Nigeria, home to cosmopolitan cities and thriving commercial hubs, the shadows of tribal tensions linger. Beneath the glittering surface of commerce and opportunity, the deep roots of tribalism continue to hold sway. This speaks of the power of tribal affinities. The Federalist movement, after more than half a century, has found it a daunting assignment to mobilize the people of historically diverse ethnicities towards a common national goal. Another controversial issue that must be raised is that, if not for Europe, we probably would still be conquering each other. There is a much peddled and cliched narrative about how European colonial powers divided and conquered Africa. It's a story repeated so often that it's rarely questioned. Let's investigate this to some extent. When the Europeans began dealing with the Africans in the Dahomey and Yoruba regions between the 1500s and 1800s, one could count at least 30 ethnic groups, if not more, and numerous other ethnic subgroups. In the 1900s, the Europeans ran an amalgamation exercise across that region and other regions of the north, bringing at least 250 distinct ethnic identities together to form only one identity. Does that sound like divide and conquer? Sounds more like unite and empower. Our beauty in diversity advantage is a direct consequence of the amalgamation exercise performed by the Europeans. For anyone who is paying attention, that exercise is taking a toll on us. Why? It's simple. It's because Africans have never been that one big family we sentimentally imagine to be the case. We have never thrived in multicultural diversity. Anyone who says or argues otherwise is simply ignorant of history or intentionally perpetuating a comforting falsity to an audience eager to accept a blissfully naive narrative. Commerce and conquest were typically the only adhesives that brought Africans to interact with each other. Typically, Yorubas stayed with Yorubas, Igbos stayed with Igbos, Ijaws stayed with Ijaws, Fulanis stayed with Fulanis, Biroms stayed with Biroms, Kanuris stayed with Kanuris. Each remained with their own, bound by language and lineage. That's how it's been for millennia and continued to be that way until the slave trade commenced. While it may sound trauma-inducing, it's undeniable that Europeans brought Africans to a shared experience. It was almost unheard of for two people from different ethnic groups to intermarry or share ideas or serve each other or create a system that offered equal opportunity to multicultural and multilingual people. Whenever Africans cooperated, it had to be in the face of external or internal existential threats. It was survival instinct. We could argue whether what the Europeans did by bringing us together was a good idea or not, but that is not the issue at hand. Finally, many people speak of all the social and political ills of the transatlantic slave trade on the continent of Africa and its people. Definitely, these ills are real, but they have been emphasized so much that it eclipses every other perspective of the transatlantic slave trade that runs contrary to the emphasized prevailing narrative. Africans speak of how much they detest the European colonial project, and one would think that at the slightest chance they would shun anything European, but Africans can't seem to stop acquiring the niceties of the Europeans and emigrating to the nations of the Europeans. Funny, isn't it? Many former colonies in Africa that are now nations still use the infrastructural blueprints laid down by the Europeans. The most preeminent case of cognitive dissonance in this regard is the Pan-African dream. Anytime you see an African Union conference being conducted in English language, there you go with the ineradicable influence of the colonial powers. It is time to realize how entrenched European influence is and how it has helped us achieve so much even though we are nowhere near the destination we are passionately longing for. These ridiculous cases that have been mentioned are proof of how dissociated word and action are for Africans. European civilization has helped Africa develop infrastructure to facilitate and expedite trade, technological advancements, political structures, and educational systems that led to the emergence of African leaders like Obafemi Awolowo, Kwame Nkrumah, and Nelson Mandela. Africa is the continent with the longest history as far as anthropological consensus is concerned. It is important to dispel the delusion that Africans have always lived together as one. This doesn't mean Africans were constantly at war with one another. There were peace times too, but it wasn't because of dialogue or diplomacy necessarily. It was because empires consolidated control and created subjects out of conquered peoples that paid homage and tribute in exchange for peace. It's that simple. The primary purpose of this video is that as we, Africans, advance as a people, we are leveraging technology and reformed governance model in order to expedite growth and development of the continent. However, we are building all these on flawed philosophical foundation that endangers everything that is being erected on it. Before the Pan-African project can commence, we need to realize our differences and approach a European issue critically without prejudice or malice. Until we do this, we will continue to pursue Kwame Nkrumah's communist endeavor disguised as a Pan-African vision, which refuses to acknowledge European influence on modern Africa and our elaborate social, cultural, lingual, and historical differences. Building on the right foundation means whatever is built will last, and no group is living in a deluded state as to who they are and what their roles on the Pan-African projects. This is the conversation that Africans need to have, and the earlier the conversation is had, the earlier the Pan-African project can be a reality and a blessing to generations unborn. Please, don't forget to hit the like button if you found this video helpful, and support the channel by subscribing. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.